Strap in for another new episode of A Shot at Business Central and a Beer, the one and only podcast made to help users just like you achieve Business Central greatness and learn a little bit about beer in the process. Whether you're an owner, director, manager, controller, or shop floor user, you're sure to pick up some actionable advice. Today, we have a very special guest joining Ken and I on the show, the general manager of Business Central, Mike Morton. So, hello, Mike, and how are you doing on this fine day?
I am doing well. Thank you, guys, for having me. I'm looking forward to a great discussion and really been enjoying my time in my role as a GM for Business Central.
Great. And it's been about 2 years now, I want to say?
Yeah, it's been about a year and a half. So I think I started, last February. So gosh, time flies. It seems like I can't claim the new guy excuse anymore.
And you definitely started during some turbulent times too. So
yes, indeed.
Right, a little curveball thrown your way too. Yeah. So, well, let's get started here with a look towards the future. I think that everyone's always excited about looking ahead and knowing what's coming in the future. It's exciting, and I'll tell you, as someone who's been working with this product for 20 years now, the future has never looked brighter. My opinion, Microsoft has been doing an excellent job in executing Business Central product development and deployment recently, and that's not always been the case. let's be honest. But what we've seen recently is very exciting. So what I want to do, instead of just looking kind of at the next release, one release, two release down, maybe we can look a little further ahead. Maybe forward 3, 4, or 5 years. Is there anything you can share with the listeners about, the vision of Business Central, areas where you see the most action or improvement relative to where we are today?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the future is very bright for Business Central, and really excited. So I'll pick kind of a couple areas. The first one, I'll say we want the product just to be seamless and delightful. And when I say this, I'm really talking the full spectrum. So from a partner implementation point of view, I'll take perf and scale. With SaaS, that should be a thing you never think about. You don't have to do a lot of planning. You can just deploy and count on whatever size database or number of transactions. Microsoft takes care of that for you. From a implementation point of view, just trying to make it easier to sort of get up and running. But perhaps most critically, from an end user point of view, just making the product easier to use, delightful, fun. When you think about ERP and business apps, you often think about big and complex and sort of deployments. And people are always trying to add sort of the sort of their wrinkles. And I think that we're going to really try to sort of surprise people on how they can come to work excited about using their business apps. Actually, something that people really love and enjoy. And so I think whether you're an end user, a partner, an SI, I think Business Central is really going to kind of evolve there. The second big place, sorry, I'm going to give a long answer, but you asked about the vision, and this gets me excited. And this is not going to be a surprise. It's going to be about integration. You're going to see us continue to work across with Office and Teams, across Power Platform, other Dynamics apps, third parties, and really ensuring that people don't have these sort of gaps or sort of potholes on their ways of experience. We want it to be really sort of seamless. So whether you're doing communications, whether you're doing warehousing or manufacturing or supply chain or productivity, bringing those things together, and that's part of the value proposition Microsoft can really bring, because we do have so many assets in those places, and we'll also do it via partnerships. If you're want to make sure you connect with your shipping provider or with your tax authority or whatever it may be, just having that integration be super seamless and really sort of end to end. And then the last one, is really James Phillips has talked about this quite a bit. If folks don't know James, he kind of runs sort of the all up Dynamics and business applications at Microsoft. And we really do think the future is going to change in terms of how people think about sort of data and intelligence. And so today, typically what happens is people go, they enter data in a form, they save it, they retrieve it, they do views later. And of course people will do that, but we see a much more automated world where even things as basic as sending out a quote and getting back an invoice, there's still a lot of manual data entry. So how can we sort of automate everything from sort of the gathering data, How can we have sensors, getting information if I'm a field person, maybe just knowing where I am with my phone shows what activity. Then how do we, reason over that data and actually do analytics and sort of have insights on that, saying, hey, this is an oddity or this is a thing you can look at. And then most importantly, how do we actually have actions? How can we suggest, hey, maybe you should contact this customer, or maybe this thing is less reliable and you should replace this, or maybe you should order these things ahead of time in your supply chain. And so I think the world of intelligence is really going to change. Maybe we'll talk more about this later, but I've heard in the past, yeah, AI is super exciting, but in SMB, maybe less so, because we know our customers, we know our businesses, we're not that complex. And I think there's some truth to that, that there is some more complexity in sort of larger enterprises, but part of that's just been a failing of the industry to bring AI to the masses, to make it easy enough to use that it's actually something that will sort of have that benefit. And so we have to make it easier to use. The scenario is obvious. And if you're talking 4 or 5 years, I think you'll see a sea change there.
See, I love that when you said you got to make AI easier to use, because the first thing I think of when I think of AI, I think of HoloLens, and it's really just seems completely complicated to me. You know what I mean? So if it were a lot easier to use, I think a lot more people would be on board. So I love that you said that.
No, absolutely. And in our vision, AI is a kind of a loaded word. People think like machine learning, but really, if you just think about it, how can we have more insights and actions for customers? And so whether or not that's sort of true AI, I think that really is probably the better sort of more customer way of talking about it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of the tip of the iceberg on that is in the current release of Business Central, there's a predicted late payments from customers, right? And I kind of think of that like as the tip of that iceberg, that if we can do that, if we can say, hey, these are the recent invoices that we've delivered to customers that we're anticipating have a high likelihood of being paid late. These are the actionable items, right? What else can we do? Right?
Yeah, and it's a great expression, because the predicted late payments actually does integrate a lot of really interesting technologies. It really has some of our core Azure ML, some of our sort of capabilities kind of behind it. And so we have a lot of that infrastructure in there, even in BC today. And if you have enough sophistication, you can actually go in Azure ML and build your kind of own thing. But we haven't brought that to the masses. And so our work, we delivered that feature, which was great. We delivered a couple more like that. But how do we change the game in terms of sort of meeting and exceeding sort of customer expectations?
Great. All right, so let's move on to the second question that we have for you. So with the influx of NAV customers upgrading to Business Central, and all these customers are really used to one major upgrade per year and one hot fix per month. Business Central, as we all know, gets the monthly update and then the 2 major updates per year. We've kind of heard whispers with current customers that this might be a little bit too frequent for them. Me personally, I love it. The more features, the better. But I understand from a customer's perspective where it's just getting piled on them and they can't keep up with the features. So, is there any plan to change this in the future? Have you heard about it being too frequent?
Yeah, no, this is certainly familiar feedback. As some of your listeners may know, I worked in the Office organization for years, and we had these same conversations in Office where some customers wanted updates all the time to the latest capabilities. Others are like, please, every 10 years, Word's fine. I've learned exactly where all the buttons are. So first, let me make a distinction. I think from a service deployment, and this may be irrelevant, but I'm going to go kind of, I think that our ability to update the code should be sort of independent of sort of whether customers actually see an experience change or anything sort of breaks. And so I think that we want to have the ability that we can, make updates, ensure the product's secure, fix bugs, respond to sort of feedback sort of very quickly. But that's I think that could be different than in terms of when customers actually experience that upgrade. So we can deploy bits, but have them be, cold or off or flighted. There are a lot of sort of industry terms here, and have, customers say, hey, here's now when I want to actually have these new capabilities show up or have these sort of new changes come on board. And so the balance is that we're going to have to figure out the right, the right sort of level of flexibility we give customers. And so, there are no there are no planned changes right now. It is certainly a top of mind topic. And frankly, we get questions in both directions. We get questions of, can you please, do less frequent? We also get, hey, can you try to, get this thing in an incremental release? And I think that's going to be a good conversation with the community, and one that we're going to probably have some nuance on in terms of how we give flexibility in certain areas and probably less flexibility in other areas.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that there's the new it's called feature management, right?
Yes.
Page in Business Central is I think a kind of a really nice compromise there of, hey, we're going to be delivering this stuff, and if you're not ready for it, we won't enable it out of the box. But you can go in there when you're ready, go into a sandbox, test it out. If you like it, if it works, go ahead and deploy it. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so that is right in line with sort of what the vision I was discussing.
Yep.
Yeah, great page. So earlier you mentioned a little bit about you want everybody to come into the office and be happy and excited about working with business apps and whatnot. And that kind of brings me to the point of simplification, right? So 5 years ago, if somebody would have asked me if I ever thought that Nav would be at the point where you can basically just start it up and it works and it's the same out of the box for everybody, I would have said no way. And obviously I would have been completely wrong nowadays. So can you talk a little bit about why Microsoft has gone down this path to simplification to where Business Central is virtually the same out of the box for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. We want, we think that having simpler implementations is a win for everybody. We think it's a win for end users by having just sort of easier experience. We think it's a win for partners because they're going to be able to do more volume. They're going to be able to take on more customers per month. And it's a win for Microsoft because we think that we're going to be able to do sort of faster innovation, be able to sort of create kind of more capabilities. And sort of how we got there, it was a cultural shift. Microsoft has got a great history as an enterprise company. When we go to partner conferences, we often get asked for feature X and feature Y and capability Z, and we do a lot of those things. And so I'm not saying at all that we're not going to continue to add sophisticated capabilities. But I sort of reject the notion that sophisticated capabilities in a simplified experience are at odds. I think you can absolutely build experiences. Think about the Palm Pilot. People are like, hey, yeah, that's going to win because you can't compare a Palm Pilot now to an iPhone or an Android device, and it's kind of laughable. And so Apple has done a great job, or Android, of building very sophisticated things that still, nail a bunch of, some of their key scenarios. And so I think we've had some cultural changes, and that includes, bringing in people that have experience in sort of other domains than sort of enterprise business apps. And I think you're going to see that not just from Business Central. I think you're even going to see that across the board in Dynamics, including our, true large enterprise products, where you might think simplification is less of an issue. We're going to make that bet.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think, we've seen directly people's expectations change really over software. And I don't know if maybe it has to do with the fact that it's cloud, right? Online software. But it seems like, 10 years ago, we would go in, we'd talk to a company, and they would expect that the software is going to do everything for them. And now it's like they've lowered those expectations a little bit. Like yeah, they don't expect every little bell and whistle right out of the box. So I love that, and I think it's working, and people seem to be adapting really well to that simplification. But in terms of kind of bigger features, I was curious what kind of thought process goes into deciding kind of what major features should or should not be included in Business Central. So as an example, right, manufacturing is a module that's included in Business Central, or warehouse management is included. But certain other things, like maybe handheld devices for barcoding in the warehouse, or a business-to-business customer portal, right, or credit card integration or something, like a lot of those are handled by apps, and there are multiple apps out there that do these things, but and some very effectively. But what kind of goes into that thought process of
yeah, that's it's and these are often, as you can imagine, great conversations that we have internally at Microsoft. There are a couple things. One is, we look at the area and think, is this better served out of the box or better served via the ecosystem? And often that factor kind of comes down to a couple things. Is it, if it's very, very different across geographies and localizations, that's sometimes where it comes better from, sort of across the ecosystem, where it's hard for us to build something that's going to make sense sort of worldwide. While we have partners around the world that can really do that sort of local and specialized. And then ultimately, for the end customer, it's more out of the box because they get, the sort of end-to-end solution for their geography or their region. It might also just be on how specialized it is to a particular vertical or how sort of common the feature is. I'll also plug, our ideas site, ak.ms/ideas. We really do look at that daily. We look at what people vote on, what people sort of suggest. And so we look at the community and try to prioritize. I have a healthy team of engineers, but no matter how many engineers I have, there's never enough to do everything you want. And so we do just classic prioritization like everybody else. And so I think, we certainly kind of listen to the customers and sort of the feedback there. And then, the last thing is, I'll say we do want to really make sure that we're focused on our target market, which is, pretty big. We go up to sort of, we have fairly large mid-market customers using Business Central. Obviously, a lot of people in the SMB space, but there are some super advanced things that will say, hey, if you're going that direction, our D365 finance or supply chain might be the right choice to go there. But frankly, that's rare. I mean, the majority of the time, our decision making is based on the ecosystem and whether or not how we just prioritize our resources.
So how heated do those debates get about whether or not who gets to put what feature into Business Central?
Honestly, not at all. I mean, I think we don't hold back capabilities in Business Central, and so there isn't a there's not some mandate or some law or something along those lines. I say our team makes the decision for what we want to do for our market, and so the key thing there is how we spend our resources. And so I just want to make sure that we don't spend so much time building this, this thing that's going to apply to 3 customers when we could spend that same time and have that apply to 10,000 customers and really kind of expand the market. So, it isn't a Microsoft policy thing. It's about us really being excellent in our space.
Yep.
Great.
So, yeah, we've already kind of, you kind of hit on, reporting, which is important to everyone. I don't know if you had anything else, right. To me, it seems like despite all of the improvements and simplification that's gone on over the past several years, it's never simple and easy enough, right, for users. So how do we continue to make reporting easier for people in business intelligence and analytics?
Yeah, that's a complicated question because reporting is so many things. There's traditional printed reports that you might need for to send to regulatory or running a business. There's things like Power BI where it's more interactive and analytical. There's cases where you're sort of doing kind of one-off sort of analyses, and and as you guys know, we have a variety of solutions today. You can do things out of the box with our reporting stuff. You can do things in Excel. We have Word templates. We have the Power BI integration, and we haven't yet found the solution to sort of rule them all. Certainly Power BI is a big bet at Microsoft. I think from a technology standpoint, you're going to see more investment there. I think certainly Excel continues to be the hero sort of end user offering, and so us kind of making it better. And then we recognize that there's still a huge need for just even on a customization out of the box reports that do core things. We still get a lot of asks on like why isn't this report in the box and that report in the box, and so we'll look at that. And so I think that is one where we'll talk about heated debates. Where I think the answer is not as clear as I'd like. I think we're going to continue to invest in several of those technologies. It's not a clean sort of one or the other. And I think over time, it's going to be upon us and the community to really make it as seamless as possible for the partners and ultimately the customers.
Yep.
It's amazing thing, power of Excel, right?
Yeah.
Can't believe how powerful and how much people love Excel still. I'm one of them.
It's like the holy grail of ERP and systems is that simple reporting. The closest thing I saw actually is like if you run a report, if you in the Power BI user interface, you can ask it a question, right? Who did we sell the most widgets to in 2021, right? And it goes through and it kind of and like, okay, I'm not sure how you can get much easier than that, but yeah.
Yeah, and some of the technologies go even further where it finds the insights for you. So it looks at the data and it's like, hey, did you notice that, your February this year was worse than your February last year or something along those lines, or that you had less, and actually find those anomalies. So a ton of interesting things there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotta love it. So speaking of different features and whatnot, then is there a feature that you guys are working on within the walls of Microsoft that might be your favorite that is not yet released? I don't know if you can talk about it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I see a nice smile. So it looks like there's a nice feature coming out.
Gosh, there's so many to choose from. I don't want to reveal too much, but I'll sort of pick one in sort of the user interface space. We're doing some work to make it just quite a bit quicker and easier to do very basic navigation and viewing of data. And so we'll have a name. It'll be, I don't want to share too much. My team will get mad at me.
Right.
But when I saw the demo of some of this stuff working, I got really excited because it's just a thing that every customer using the product, is just going to make their life just a little bit faster, a little bit more convenient. Once it's there, people will wonder why you didn't have it forever. And so I think that some of the investments in that space I think are very exciting to me. I could go on and on about our modern dev and performance and Power BI integration, but sometimes those user interface ones I think are particularly fun.
Great. Ken, anything else you want to ask,
Yeah,
Mr. Mike?
yeah. Before we get to Michael has some speed round questions that we always wrap up with. I guess we do have a couple minutes. Let's talk about AppSource a little bit. So first of all, I remember the first time I went out there and there was like, I don't know, like 30 apps or 50 apps. And now there's, I believe, over 1,600, maybe 1,700 at this point. And literally as a consultant, I go out there and someone says, oh, is there anything for this? I go out there to check, right? Because there's always more options and it's great. But part of what people are I think I've been hearing a lot about is kind of the monetization of it. There's differences in licensing, like how different apps get licensed. Is it per user? Is it per module? Is it per whatever? Just as a whole or per company? And just simplifying that whole process. I know this has been a discussion point for a while, but just any updates or anything in terms of that.
So I'll be open and the first to admit that we have a lot of work and improvement in terms of AppSource and the experience in Business Central integration. So we do, I think, 1,757 apps right now. So we have a lot.
There you go.
But you bring up great points. So monetization's one. We don't allow transactability, via Microsoft via AppSource. I do expect that we're going to have that as a capability. I think for folks that have been talking to us, we've been saying it's a year away for 3 years now, and so that's one that has been frustrating in terms of executing on. Part of it is the complexity. You brought up some people want to charge per user, like something like payroll. They don't want to charge per Business Central user. They want to charge per employee that they send payroll out to, charge per customer, and so the matrix of sort of things to sort of get right there. And it will be optional. I do expect that when we do it, we'll also let customers, if they don't, they can choose to have their own sort of monetization path. But that's certainly one on our list. And then also just talk about the store itself. It is overwhelming. You go there's whatever 1,700 plus solutions. How do I know, is this one good? Is it going to work? And app stores like Apple and Android have some of these problems, but they also have the benefit of a large number of reviews, and you can go and look at ratings and sites, and these are the most popular. And and the BC universe isn't at that kind of scale where that those things could really help. So there are some basics for us. Like here's a really simple one: letting you filter by country. And so if I'm in France. I'll see payroll providers for Australia and Japan. Hey, can we at least show you the apps that sort of make sense for your region? That's not a capability available in AppSource. It's one that I hope that we'll have soon. Another world is letting partners, and this is one we're actually working on, have recommended apps. So if you're a partner and you have a bunch of customers, you can go and say, hey, these are the ones that we know work well. Maybe if you're an ISV, working with an ISV solution. And then we'll look at sort of other ways of having, I'll say we have other ideas around certification, badging, ratings, et cetera, to really sort of help kind of encourage quality in that experience. And so it's a kind of a multifaceted area. And I think we have the most apps in AppSource of any product in Microsoft, more than SharePoint. One of the things I sort of worked on, and as you said, it's a great thing, but it's also a thing that we know we're going to have to sort of make the discoverability of what makes sense for a particular customer dramatically better.
That's great. Yeah, because usually we pick a random app every month, and most of the time they work. But there's been some times where we download the app into Business Central, and it's had some issues and whatnot. So great to hear that Microsoft knows about it, and maybe some changes are on the way. If I could also add one bit of my opinion, if you do the filters in AppSource, add a filter for newest app. We'd love to see the new apps that are in there. We keep checking every time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that we don't have that, but it's the. I do want to empathize with my peers in AppSource. They have so many teams working with them and a lot of asks, and so it turns out these marketplaces are pretty complicated.
Yeah. In the realm of everything, it's amazing how fast in the past couple of years AppSource and Business Central and apps have come together. So everybody at Microsoft is busting their butts, and it is truly amazing to see what has been put together in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
All right, speed round time.
Yeah.
Great. Let's do it.
All right. So basically 5 questions, quick answers, yes or no, range on a whole bunch of different topics. So number 1. Is the Business Central mobile app currently installed on your phone?
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. In fact, I installed it the day before I was announced to the team. And I had this wonder of hey, could they track the fact that I just downloaded the app? And yes, right, on my
And they can. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Have you ever had a nightmare pertaining to Business Central?
Oh yeah, too many. Probably database storage pricing was the roots of many of those. So I sleep a little bit better at night these days.
Yeah, super glad you probably don't have to talk about all that too much anymore. Will on-premise software one day make a comeback and be the go-to ERP choice?
Yeah, so the future is definitely cloud. But I will say that there will be hybrid cases, and so I think you are going to see these scenarios where you have edge devices working with the cloud. I would be stunned to see if there was a reversal. The cloud is sort of the long-term future. But when we say cloud, we do think edge devices in terms of performance and scale.
Yeah. Hopefully not everything is cyclical, so where it comes back to on-prem.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Bell bottoms may be on-prem software, not so much.
Yeah, let's hope neither for both, just from my opinion. All right, last but not least, have you ever seen Mr. Satya Nadella lose that cool, calm, and collected demeanor that he is famous for?
I've met with Satya many times, and I have not. I've met with Bill Gates many times, and well, I'll just quit there. I'll just say maybe a different story. But with Satya, it's amazing. I mean, he really is cool, calm, and collected. Now, he does have really, he can be very decisive. He can have strong opinions, and so it is actually really impressive to see him in action because he is. He does have that kind of authoritative voice, that clear sort of vision, but he does so in this just very calm, cool, collected manner. That's really impressive, and so it's just been a joy to work with Satya.
Yeah, he seems like the night. I mean, I've never met him, but over videos and watching him, he just seems like the nicest person out there. So it's great to translate that into.
But I say he is the nicest person, but he's also intense, and so
yeah. Oh, I would imagine so. All right. Well, it's just about the time to start wrapping things up then. But before we end the podcast, is there anything you'd like to share, Mike, that maybe we didn't touch upon?
I just want to thank any listeners out there, whether you're a partner selling Business Central or potentially a customer. The pride of this community is fantastic. I think people's willingness to to work with each other, to build solutions, to help sort of spread the word. That's why I'm sort of happy to be sort of part of the podcast. And it really is a fantastic place to work and sort of a bright future. And so I wanted to thank folks, and I really do think that working together, it's going to be a great growth. This is probably more for the partners and the customers, but it's really going to be a next great growth story. And so I think for partners in that business, I'm excited about your futures. I think for Microsoft, we're excited about sort of the opportunity. And if you're an end customer, hopefully you're excited about all the innovation that comes as a result of that investment.
Yeah,
definitely.
right. Yeah, I think we're in the midst of experiencing that growth, which is great. And we would be remiss if we didn't ask on a shot of Business Central and a beer. If you do enjoy a cold beer every now and then, and if so, what kind? If not, what other type of drink do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked this last because I might get kicked off. So I do enjoy to drink from time to time, but I'm not a beer person. I'm definitely a wine and cocktail person. And so my personal favorite cocktail is a sidecar, a very old-fashioned drink, but one that I got introduced to and somehow have quite an affinity for. And like many, not to say many, but folks know Mike Ehrenberg. He was quite the wine aficionado. And I came in thinking I was a wine person, only to discover that I cannot possibly fill his shoes. So there does need to be a tradition of Business Central team and an enjoyment of a nice glass of wine or maybe a bottle.
Yep,
Great. I've never heard of a sidecar, so I might have to try that one time.
Oh, yeah, I recommend it.
Thank you so much. Well, we'd like to say thank you for joining us during this episode of A Shot of Business Central and a Beer. We truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join some of us normal people. And, we look forward to maybe doing this once again in the future.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Take care and have a good day.
You
Great.
too.
Thank
Thank
you
you so much. Bye. As we end today's podcast, we want to give a big thank you to everyone who listens, shares this podcast, and leaves us reviews. You've taken a good amount of your time out of your day, and we truly appreciate it. Thanks again. And don't be afraid to email us at marketing@solsyst.com with your tips for the podcast, or maybe you'd even like to be a guest during an episode.